Welcome to episode 13 of my Creative Heart Prompts. I cannot believe that we're already in week 13. That's so exciting. So this week, my Creative Heart Prompt and acrylic technique that we are exploring for you to play in your art journal and in your studio with is, drum roll, drips and splatters. Yes, in today's episode I show you how you can use this simple acrylic painting technique in your artwork, and I cannot wait to share with you. So join me now as I show you how. Hi, my name is Gideon. I'm also known as Gideon Slight. Welcome to my studio, and I'm your creatively fit coach. So join me now. Right, what will we need for today's creative session? You will definitely need a bucket of water, your acrylic paints, and I'm going to be playing with my Carmine red and my orange, and I've also got some titanium white over here. You will definitely need a fan brush. I think this is one of the best brushes for drips and for splatter. I've just got my little palette knife here to get some paint out of my jar. A pipette could be helpful to draw some water out of the bucket and add it to your palette. And I like to use these vegetable or meat trays because it has a bit of a rim. So if I create something very fluid, it won't run off my palette. So it just helps me to keep the paint contained. Maybe a kitchen towel. And if you prefer not to work with water and you want a little bit more of a binding factor to your drips and drabs, you are also welcome to use an acrylic pouring medium in order to dilute your paint. But I personally quite love how water works. It just gives me that freedom to express. So let's get into it. And I'm going to be working on this previous board of mine where I did some expression art. I talked about this morning on my Facebook group, and we discussed showing up in life even when life feels not worth showing up for. So do join my Facebook group and watch that live session that I shared this morning with my audience. That was really inspirational and uplifting. Right, so let me show you what I've done in my art journal thus far. Let me just grab my art journal and bring that closer for you guys. And I created this very moving piece for me personally. I got this beautiful image of a Buddhist monk in the rice field with the umbrella, and the umbrella is one of my personal symbols that I really love in my art and in my life. And I actually used one of my yellow acrylic skins that I created the other day. Let me just show you the other half. This is a beautiful piece of acrylic skin that I created, and if you're interested in how I did that, check out my playlist, because I think the acrylic skins was 2 weeks or so back as an acrylic technique. So check that out, and I'll show you how to create acrylic skins and I added this to my journal, and I did some ink work, brought in some power symbols that relates to my belief system into my page. And I also used what is it called, washi tape that I created myself on some painter's tape. And the background of this page was also a roll of page that was just really beautiful. So in order to sort of bring the layers together and create a little bit more interest, I'm going to be using drips and splatters today. I already did some splattering over here as a layer to create more interest, but I want to use drips on this page to just integrate some of the layers. But before we get to that, I want to show you on this practice page how to create your mixes and how to use it in your artwork. So let's get to it. I'm going to bring back some of this orangey red in the background, but I want to create a variety of intensities. So I'm going to start with this orange acrylic paint, and we're going to offload it here on our palette. There we go. And then, forgive my doggies playing outside, barking. This is an environment that we are living in. I'm going to use my pipette, and I'm going to add a little bit of water, and I'm going to activate my brush, and I'm going to dilute this paint until you can get to a nice yummy runny stage. So this is where I find the pipette useful, so that I don't have to dip my brush in the clean water every time. So it's really something that you need to explore and create personally. There's a variety of flow that could be useful, meaning that it becomes a personal choice. You can dilute your paint to such a degree where it's already very runny, or you can use this thicker paint and then use a spray bottle of some sort to activate the spray. So let's start with that. Yes, let's show you guys what it would look like with this diluted paint. I'm gonna sort of create a field of paint over there, and I'm gonna put my palette aside so that you guys can see, because you do need to use gravity to your advantage. So I'm gonna spray this water on there and just activate that paint. I'm gonna I think it's still a little bit thick, but that's okay. There's no right, there's no wrong. Do have some kitchen towels handy, and if you work on a canvas, on an easel, it's maybe a little bit easier. Let me just move my paint aside so that I don't bump the camera or anything. So I'm going to lift this up now and allow the drips to flow down. That's exciting. So I think that paint is still a little bit thick, but you get the gist of it. We have a flow. Here we go. So that's an interesting drip and flow. And obviously you can also remove. You can remove paint if it's too thick. There's no right and no wrong. But I do think I want to dilute my paint a little bit more. Let's add a bit more water. So one of the things I can suggest is before you go with your paint directly into your art journal, is to have a practice sheet first and get the consistency of your paint ready for you. I normally say it must be able to run off the brush like that. So a bit of an ink-like consistency is definitely helpful. Right, so I'm going to lift this up because it was a little bit too watery with the spray. And I'm going to add a bit more paint to this structure that I created. And I'm going to lift my board up again. And you can also use your pipette with a bit of water to activate your drips and your flows as another example. Or we can go back to our spray and just help the paint run down the page. So that is what we will call a drip. Another way that you can do it is you can also use a little bit of a cup or a container of sorts. I like to use these party cups, plastic or paper, and then add my paint to that and dilute it quite a bit. And then I like to use my pipette and pull up the paint from my little cup and then add specific lines that run down my artwork if you really want to control your drips and place it on a very specific place on your canvas. That's definitely one way to do it. I'm gonna now add a little bit of this Carmine red to my orange and create a different color. So we're going to be very playful here. Just clean my palette knife. And I'm gonna mix this beautiful red into my orange. And I'm gonna use my pipette and clean ordinary tap water to dilute this paint and to get it to move, because this is heavy body paint. You do get fluid acrylics that you can use just like that, and you can also use acrylic ink, but those mediums are already quite fluid. And you know what, not everybody has it takes a lot of money to have all the colors of the rainbow in all the mediums that's available. So if you have a heavy body paint acrylic, you can always create your own kind of ink-like consistency, and you can mix your own colors just like you would while painting. Now I'm going to show you why I love the fan brush as a dripping tool, and because the brush's hair is in this fan position, it already creates a little bit of a separation, and it gives me a beautiful fine splatter that I quite enjoy as a splatter technique. So the more paint I load onto my brush like that, if I tap it out, I get thicker splatter structures. And if I take most of it off and I hold my brush a little bit higher, let me show you here, I get beautiful fine little drips and splatters that's a little bit more controlled, and you can see it's not as messy. It doesn't go all over the studio because I have a variety of brush wings, almost like my fingers, that releases the droplets of paint, and you can create quite a fine structural splatter that I quite enjoy. But I also love these bigger structures that creates a variety of structures and movement on my page that I quite enjoy. Now if these are still wet, you can also create interesting wet into wet kind of techniques, because the paint will begin to flow and mix a little bit. One can't ever have too much or too little. I really enjoy this technique in my playtime in my studio, because it just is so expressive and fun, and I like that you don't always have control over exactly where it will land and what it will do. So I'm just going to lift my board up again and allow these drips just to flow down. And you can see how this already added another layer to this artwork, to this piece of paper, and the structure that we have here with some drips down is really creating a lot of visual interest and dynamic color use here. So that's going to be fun. So you get the gist of it, of how to create drips and splatters. It's really not that complicated, and it's something that is really useful in your art. So I'm excited to see how you will use this technique in your art. So do remember to join my Creative Heart group on Facebook. The link is in the description of this video, and take some photographs and share it with our group there. We have a bunch of awesome people and a number of different creative coaches as well. So it really is a safe zone where you can share your art and your experience with us, and we can continue to support you. So I'm going to put this aside, and then I'm going to bring my art journal into this exercise, and I'm going to utilize a little bit of the drip technique on my page in order to integrate that page a little bit more. So I'll see you now. Right, so I've got my art journal out, and I'm going to use the drips and the splatter to integrate some of these layers. So I've decided to bring out my yellow ochre and my pale yellow, and I'm going to create some mixtures of these on my palette. So let's begin. I'm going to work here on the side because my palette is a little bit wet, and do some yellow ochre. And just grab another piece of my kitchen towel over here so that I can wipe my palette knife, and my little bit of lemon yellow. There we go. That's maybe more than I need, but that's okay. So every time I dispense a little bit too much paint of something, then I always have some paper on the side where I can use the excess paint either as a technique or as a roll off, and I create interesting collage elements with the leftover paint. So I'm going to add some water to my palette here. Let me put it there, and I'm going to bring out my trusty little fan brush. Now it's really not the only brush you can use. You can use any brush in your arsenal, but I would recommend a practice page so that you can familiarize yourself with the type of splatter that that particular brush will give you before you use it in your artwork, just to see if the consistency of your paint is correct and you like the effect that it's giving you. Also keep in mind that some of your paints are more opaque than others, and some of your paints will be more translucent, so that will also affect what your drips and splatters will look like. So for example, if you don't want your drips and splatters to cover up everything in the background, then it's a good idea to do your technique with a translucent paint that doesn't have opacity. So that's definitely one of the things that you must keep in mind with the technique. And especially if you use this technique later in your artwork, maybe towards the completion stage, just so that you're aware that you don't want to cover up maybe something important in your painting that you didn't expect. So most yellows are very translucent. I think yellow ochre is definitely one of the yellows that's less translucent because it has an opaque finish, unless your paint says on the tube that it is translucent. So that's definitely one of the codes that you must familiarize yourself with. So I think for myself, I'm going to listen to my own advice and just grab a practice sheet here from my stash in my studio that I always have handy so that I don't have to look for it. I'm just going to use this lemon yellow or light yellow and just see if I like what I'm seeing. And let me also try it with the yellow ochre. So that's a little bit thicker, but I do like the consistency. Let me add just a few more drops of water. Obviously this also has a bit of an extended drying time that you must keep in mind. So do have a surface ready where you can use, you know, or add your drips and whatever, and then leave your canvas or your page alone. So for drips, if you keep it vertically, it will obviously use the gravity. But if you don't want it to run off your canvas or off your page, you want the drips to stop at a certain stage, then you will need to control that flow by you know, putting your canvas or your artwork down on a flat surface so that it can dry in a horizontal position. Especially also with your splatters, if you want your splatters to stay in position, it's always the best idea to work with your canvas on a table. Otherwise your splatters could also turn into drips. So these are the few things that I would say be mindful of. If you are going to use both of these techniques in your art journal or on your canvas, then I would really do the drip one first and then add the splatters at the end. Another tip I can give you is if you want to protect something in your art journal, like this is my main focus on this particular page, and I don't necessarily want to you know, cover up everything, I really want to protect it, then I will suggest that you use a piece of paper or you know, a little bit of kitchen towel. You can even tear it to, you know, protect just an element of your painting. So I'm going to do this because I do want to protect my image there. I don't want it to be covered, but for now I'm going to play with my drips first, but I'm prepared for when I do my splatters. So I thought of bringing some of the yellow from my left page to this side of my journal, and I'm just going to lift this up now in order to encourage some of these little drips. Now you might not see clearly. I think I need a bit of water more. The paint is still a bit thick for me. It really is a visual thing with this kind of technique until you are happy. So I'm just going to use gravity there. Sometimes it helps to just create a space for the paint, a little groove, to encourage the flow in a very particular place, and then just keep an eye on it. That can run down, so I'm using gravity to its full force now. I will show you guys now how that is progressing. That looks nice. I can't see my palette. Let me move my palette so I can see what I'm doing, so I can show you guys. I think I want a little bit more there. There we go. One more down here. Using the corner of my brush now. Just want to control where I put this. I think one of the most annoying parts about drips could be when some of your drip lines merges and it becomes one with another stream of paint. There we go. So like here, I'm going to stop because I like where this is just touching the umbrella. I don't want it to run over my umbrella. You can also let your paint flow back into your main structure. There we go. That's fun. Alrighty then. Now I thought that the yellow ochre will look very nice as a splatter pattern. Now before I splatter, let me protect my main focus here. And the yellow ochre is just going to break this big yellow expanse up a little bit and connect some of the ochre on this side. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow as well, maybe down there. That looks nice. Yes, bring it on. Okie dokie. That's enough. So now when I remove this little piece of paper, I did disturb that, but that's okay. I'm just going to use my finger. There we go. I really love this moment. This is the magic of paint, especially with action techniques like splatter and drips and whatever. So there's a magic that you cannot predict. You can hope for and you can prepare for it, but you know, you can't always control everything. Now I don't want my structure to just begin suddenly there like a cloud. So I'm just going to use the side of my brush there just to break that up a little bit and flow into the beginning top part of my page so that it's consistently connecting and moving off the page, opening it up. Otherwise it looks like a closed structure in the middle there. So I'm really happy. I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to my washi tape that I see is pulling away over there, but I will have to wait for these drips to dry. Now just a little bit of word of caution I do see a little bit of air bubbles here. You would want to break any air bubbles because otherwise it will open as a cell on your paint, and you don't want that. That's cool. If you're going to dry this with a hair dryer, please do it on a low setting, both for heat and for your airflow, because you don't want to blow your drips and your splatters in a different direction unless that is what you want. Also, if you dry your drips and your splatters with a high heat, what will happen is your paint will shrink and it will crack, and it will give you maybe an unwanted texture. So if you want to keep your textures as it is right now, I really suggest that you just leave it alone and give it a good few hours to dry. Because it's been diluted with water, it will dry eventually. So don't stress, but definitely be patient at this stage. So I'm gonna set this aside and I'm gonna let this dry, and when it's dry I will come back and I will show you what we're gonna do next. If this page needs anything more, which I don't think it will, I will add it at that stage, but I'm quite happy with how this turned out, and I'm excited to see what you guys are gonna do with this little simple acrylic technique of drips and splatter. Show me, take a photograph, share it with us, and if you have any questions, please feel free to drop me a comment below this video and to chat with me. I will personally answer all of your questions and comments, and it's always fun to communicate with my audience and my community. I really send you guys a lot of love and light today, thinking of you out there in the world, and may you have an awesome creative day. Thanks for tuning in today, and I'll speak to you guys again real soon. And there you have it. It's another page in my art journal where I have used the Creative Heart prompt of the week in order to create some visual interest and drama. My paint is still wet. I'm going to leave this for a few hours to dry, and then it's another page done in my art journal. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed today's journey in acrylic techniques with drips and splatters. It really is such a joyful technique. So I will encourage you guys to explore it in your art and in your art journal. Take a photograph and share it with us on the Creative Heart group on Facebook. It really is a beautiful, supportive community, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys again next week when we explore another creative technique. And I will see you guys then. Bye bye for now.